Isn't it absolutely wonderful when a sequel takes everything great about its predecessor and builds upon it? You know, like a sequel should. What? I mean, it's not like he was doing anything with it. Alright, fine, whatever. Hey, I'm Vladimir Lore, and it's time for round 2 of Master of Unlocking. This time we're talking about
Resident Evil 2.
Alright, look, Resident Evil 1 is a classic for sure. Started a series, it started the genre. But I think it's fair to say that it's not the best survival horror game. And no one really expects it to be. They were pioneering through new ground. You're always gonna stumble when you try something new. But bada boom, bada bing, here comes Resident Evil 2! Setting the series in stone as a household name. While Resident Evil 2 basically just built upon the shoulders of giants, I'd like to take a second to look at exactly what they changed and made better. This game has better visual feedback. When you've taken damage, you can see it on the player, so you know when they're hurting. And it was one of my biggest complaints about the first game. A large contributing factor to reasons I fucking died. Plus they mapped the fucking map to a button. What a concept! Before you had to click in your inventory, then back out once to select the map, then select the selection that you wanted to see, and then back out twice. Now you could just be like, shit, where am I? Ah. This game went all out and added more of fucking everything. More zombies, more weapons, more rooms, more scenarios, more scares. Oh my. Suppose bigger isn't always better, but in this case it was. One of the coolest things about this game is that there are 2 scenarios, and certain choices you make in scenario A will affect scenario B, and while these are far and few in between and don't actually affect anything, it's still a neat nod. It would have been really cool if they had made this a more integral part of the game. Unlike the dogs and the other one that just happen as soon as you walk into the hallway for the first time, this one comes with a bit more restraint. They wait until you feel safe, and then after you've traversed it and gotten to know the layout, BAM! Fucking zombie arms. I had this one moment of like genuine hesitation when Mr. X is introduced, and he just lands in the hallway where you're about to enter, and you're just like, well, fuck. I gotta go forward because there's literally no other place to go, but I'm just not equipped to fight that thing right now. So just like the first game, a lot of the horror comes from the early game when you're not well equipped to fight. Of course, not everything was changed for the better. So what did they do that made it worse? In the first game, there was a lot of enemies that would hit you hard and fast, but almost never did you take damage twice in a row. But here in Resident Evil 2, it was just more common to take several hits with no recovery time. Now, they try to offset this by giving the player more health, but it's a big source of frustration when you're stun-locked and you haven't saved recently. There's repeating puzzles in this game, but I'll delve into that more when we get to the puzzles category. Often when you hear somebody talk about Resident Evil from way back in the day, they usually will mention how they used to just glide up and down walls and pressing A repeatedly. Which I didn't get after the first game, because all the items were just out in the open, and they were well choreographed. Or there were drawers that were clearly drawers meant to be opened. But number 2, they just said fuck it. There's so many items hiding in containers that could have very well just been walls. I suppose it feels more random, because not all containers look like backgrounds. I'd often find myself just tapping A, you know, just to check, and then oh boop bloop bloop. Here comes fucking an item, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. The first game was cleaner, almost sterile, and the second game feels more lived in and trashed. Now, that's not to say that's a bad thing, but in the case of this game, trying to find extra ammo, it can be very annoying. Alright, now we've talked about what the changes are, let's delve into more of the aspects of, you know, what we're focusing on, what makes the game a survival horror. Well, to start, the atmosphere is quite different than the first. In RE1, it was more of a somber tone of being isolated in a mansion with monsters. However, in Resident Evil 2, it was more of a tone of being overwhelmed. The desperation that comes from an apocalyptic event. Like in the first game, you're coming into the tail end of something terrible that happened. However, this time it's bigger. There's more carnage to be witnessed, more dead bodies everywhere, more zombies, it's just so much. The game has to give you more ammo to compensate, and so you can start to see the series turn more of an action-oriented future. Thankfully, they aren't so reliant on block-pushing puzzles. Unfortunately, the puzzles are still quite low in quality, and even worse, you have to redo most of all the puzzles for each character. They don't change dynamically in any way. Like, seriously, look at this shit, what the fuck? Here's Sherry pushing some blocks, then Ada pushing the exact same blocks. Wow. And this is to get the exact same key for the exact same doors. Also, they had several opportunities to use key items as interesting puzzle pieces, but instead they just use them as multi-keys to a door. So it ends up just eating inventory space. Like, look, it wouldn't have been a hard puzzle, like, to do the little bit extra, but at least it would have been an interesting puzzle, like something you would have had to work through. By, you know, like, they even had the text there and everything. All they had to do is fucking implement, like, the actual putting of the blocks, but instead they just automatically do it for you, like they do in all of these games thus far. Both characters get 8 slots to start. I think that's an optimal amount, giving you 2 for guns, 2 for ammo, 1 or 2 for health, and 2 to 3 for key items. Though there is an upgrade pack that gives one of the 2 characters extra slots, so management for whichever character you choose becomes pretty much non-existent. Although RE2 was the first game to introduce items that took 2 slots, so if you plan to use those at all, you're a lot more reliant on those chests, of which there are a lot more than the prior game. However, this is probably due to the game having more map space. So let's talk about the level design and the changes that were made. So Resident Evil 2 starts us on a straight shot, where Resident Evil 1 just uses a cinematic to show the characters enter the main area. RE2 has you do it. And I think that's a great addition. The opening area really helps you feel overwhelmed in this giant environment. There's zombies everywhere, and you do not have enough ammo to take them all on. It is time to run. I mean, unless you play on easy. So you do. Straight to the police station. Now, in the mansion, from the start you have options, east or west, upstairs, downstairs. Making the wrong choice will force you to backtrack and try another path, but all choices have things to explore, and as we mentioned in the first video, you have a lot of puzzles to start. In this game you choose east or west, but east has so many zombies that it deters you from going that way, so west it is. You go west, and there's 4 hallways to 4 rooms. Now this isn't a major complaint, but it does make the levels feel a lot more, well, levelly. In RE1, the hallways led to many rooms, like a real fucking building does. But here, the police station just, you know, feels like a level. And it doesn't really loop as readily as the first games did. It's full of dead ends, which adds up to the more noticeable backtracking that happens. But after the first area, both these games really get funneled into even more linear design. Now I think this is more of a pacing thing, where you start off the game slow and tedious, inching along, trying to like immerse yourself into this world, but then as you get further into the game, things start to ramp up. Enemies get bigger, you get more ammo, it becomes, I guess, more of an action game. But I do think that it would be more interesting to have, you know, more puzzle box like the first mansion. But unfortunately Resident Evil 2 doesn't really have that. You never actually have to backtrack to an area once it's done. You just hit up them sewers and then you're in the laboratory. In RE1, after you beat the mansion, you had to go to one area and then you had to go back to the mansion. It just feels like the mansion had more thought put into it, more care put into its level design. Each area felt more like a puzzle and a maze, while this game is more straightforward. You know, something I noticed that doesn't really affect the game either way is that the 3D viewer in the inventory screen is just gone. Now there's 2D sprites instead. Sure, you lose out on having to look at key items to find clues and stuff, but since it was so underutilized in the first game, I wasn't really missed at all. You know, it's odd. While the level design isn't as interesting as RE1, I still think RE2 is the better game. It just feels better. There's more content. It hits that sweet spot between horror and action. I think comparing it to RE1 though is kind of like comparing Alien to Aliens. They just hit different tones in the universe. The first entry is more somber and isolating, while the second is more bombastic and action-packed. So now I guess it's time to find out. Will Resident Evil 3 end up like Alien 3? Hopefully we'll find out next time. Until then, stay creative.